TV Episode 2, The Light and Dark Side of Star Wars. MovieMuse.net is the home of movie and music reviews and other random musings. You can follow us also on Facebook and Twitter. Tonight we're in the Movie Muse Cantina, a wretched hive of scum and villainy. I'm your host and trying to maintain order in the cantina. I'm Matt Witchfinder. Also in the cantina tonight we have founder and Dark Lord of Movie Muse, sometimes known as Sir Clive, but tonight we'll call him Darth Gordon.
Hello.
We also have a mysterious smuggler known by many names, Wizwords, JD and Diet, Gripper, but we'll just call him Graham tonight.
Watcher.
And we have an excitable, friendly, hairy Wookiee of a man, also known as Simon Boggy B.
Good evening.
And finally, joining us all the way from the distant world of Germany, an insult droid fluent in over 6 million forms of withering criticism. Welcome back to Mr. Pete Thunder.
Wie geht's?
Was that German?
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
cool. So, without further ado, let's move on to what we've been watching recently. So, let's start with Mr. Thunder.
No, right. What have we seen? We saw... I tell you what I did see. Dying for Beginners. I assume that's the English title, because we actually watched it in German. The German title is Sterben für Anfänger. What I found weird was that it was an English film, but in German. We watch quite a lot of stuff in German, but it's normally American stuff, and it's like, that doesn't feel odd. But when you see like little terraced houses and nice little quaint England, and then it's all in German, that's just odd. But what was the film about? The film was about a funeral, and things kind of go wrong. It's kind of a light-hearted comedy. It was alright.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Never heard of it, but we'll keep an eye out for it. Moving on then, Simon, been watching anything movie or TV related recently of note?
Only thing I watched was that thing, was it Torremolinos, that silly comedy programme on TV, which is about the thing when they're just all around, they're just literally permanently on holiday. It's got Tim Healy out of Vida St. and a few other bits and pieces. I watched an episode of that last week, and I've only watched a couple of episodes of Father Ted, really. That's it.
Fair enough, that was short and sweet then. Gordon, any advance on a bit of Father Ted?
Yeah, well, I've watched quite a bit. I followed up watching the original Transporter last time with the 3 other Transporter films. The second one, third one was pretty good, really. And then the fourth, the reimagining or whatever it is with the new Frank, was awful again. So, bit of hit and miss in the Transporter series. I watched the first series of Red Dwarf. I'm just trying to work through all of them before we do a Red Dwarf special in the new year. So yeah, I watched the first series, which is always good fun. And then last night I watched Predator 2. And the best way to describe that film is probably shit happens. And yeah, that film happened.
The best way to describe that film is not as good as Predator 1.
Well, it's not as good as virtually anything else. But it was good to see it, and I'll try and watch the modern one. Was there like 2009 or something like that they did?
Predators?
Yeah, I'll give that a try.
Yeah, that's good. That's worth watching. It's a very overdue but surprisingly good sequel. Graham, how about you?
I've watched a couple of movies from the 70s. The first one was called Capricorn 1, which I finally got around to buying it on Blu-ray. The plot of it is great. It's basically mimicking the rumours that went around about the moon landing, that the moon landing was faked, and it kind of takes this and runs with it. And it's about a mission to Mars. They're on the runway, or the space rocket, about to take off when they're escorted out of the rocket because there's a problem. But of course, it's a political angle to it, and they don't want to lose funding from the government, so the mission goes ahead, and they simulate landing on the Mars in the desert in some big warehouse. And then when the rocket returns, things go a bit pear-shaped, and basically the crew are technically dead. So then obviously the thriller part of it comes in. So that was a good movie, so I watched that again. And also watched on DVD, I watched The Final Countdown, which was a film about a nuclear aircraft carrier that is sucked back in time just before Pearl Harbor, and it's one of those classic what-if situations. Do they intervene and prevent Pearl Harbor? Or do they just let it happen as history obviously happens?
I think they should cut it out. It's a terrible film. Don't let Pearl Harbor happen. Worst film ever.
I thought when you said you'd watch The Final Countdown, it's going to be a Europe biopic with the 80s rock band. No?
Exactly,
okay.
Not that good.
No, okay.
Yeah, I actually went to the cinema to see The Final Countdown, and bearing in mind I was 8 at the time, and it's not the most exciting of films, I'm not sure it was the best choice to take an 8 and 9 year old to. I don't find it that much fun now, but when I was young and excitable, definitely not.
Well, I thought the 2 F-14 Tomcats against the Zeros was quite good, and a few other little bits and pieces. Yeah. But then it looks great because they're going to all the fleets of planes are just about to go and attack the Japanese, and then suddenly the storm appears and they all turn around. So there's actually a lot of action they could have put in at the end and they missed. But great if I like it anyway.
I think we're all just a little bit amazed that you have an opinion on it, really.
A film I've actually seen, Matt.
Matt, before we go on to yours, can I just say there's one other film that I watched that's worth a mention?
No.
Well, I'm going to do any. It was called The Edge. Anthony Hopkins,
One
Alec
of the
Baldwin,
Baldwins.
Elle Macpherson, and a fantastic performance, Oscar-worthy performance from Basil the Bear. It was... No, I swear, the bear pits in it are absolutely fantastic, and if there's an Oscar for animals, he should win one. But it's a really good film. I really enjoyed it.
Which is very good, yeah.
I seem to recall it being quite good, yeah. I think that's a future topic for a future episode of this show is award-winning animal performances, but let's not go there now, because otherwise we could be here all night.
The squirrel in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, what about the gopher in Caddyshack?
Oh,
Wasn't
nice.
actually a real gopher though, but you know. Anyway, let's move on from that. I'll just quickly go through a couple of films I watched over the weekend. First was Ratatouille, the Pixar film. It's the only Pixar film other than the new one that's just come out that I hadn't seen. And it's a bit hit and miss, I thought. There's some bits of it that are quite enjoyable, but it wasn't as funny as most Pixar films. And the plot, considering it's a film for kids primarily, was all over the place for the first sort of 45 minutes. You got various characters being introduced, all talking in dodgy French accents. So very difficult for kids to follow, I thought. But it had quite a nice ending. And the other film that I watched was A Time to Kill, the adaptation of the John Grisham book, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Matthew McConaughey and a massive cast of really famous people. And I thought that was awesome. I've seen it before a long time ago, but I think Samuel L. Jackson gives probably a career best performance in that as the guy who shoots the two hillbillies that assaulted his daughter. But the most amazing thing I thought about the film was it was actually directed by Joel Schumacher, who not a year later went on to direct the utter pile of steaming turd that is Batman and Robin. So a bit of a range of quality from that guy. Next up, we have a little feature. We're going to rotate these features from one show to the next, where one of our team comes up with an idea for a movie pitch on this occasion, and the rest of us decide whether it should be made into a movie or not based on the pitch. And the person giving the pitch this time around is our Lord and Master, Gordon.
Thank you very much. Well, I was checking one of these trailer sites to see what new films were coming out, and I noticed there was a trailer for a film called Tetris. I was quite excited that somebody had made a movie out of Tetris until I clicked into it and realised it's just a documentary about the making of Tetris. So I got my thinking cap on and thought, well, what would a movie about Tetris actually look like? So that's what I'm going to pitch to you today, Tetris the movie. So this is going to be an 80s action thriller. We're going to have Tom Selleck as Alexei Pajitnov, I think that's how you say his name, Fred Savage as a 6-year-old autistic video games prodigy, Thor Ackerlund, Bruce Willis will play his dad, an NYPD cop, and then we'll have Dolph Lundgren as a robot-like assassin, Agent 12. So that's our cast. It's 1984, and Alexei's working in a secret R&D facility for the Soviet Academy of Sciences, and he stumbles upon some secret military plans for a space station with the capability of wiping out half of the Western world. Being, the good guy that Alexei is, he manages to steal the plans for the space station and creates Tetris as a vehicle to smuggle the plans out of the Eastern Bloc.
Have you got a poster designed?
No.
That's the most important thing. That's what you do first, man.
No, you do your cast first.
DVD cover, poster, rap line, and then you start getting your soundtrack sorted.
And then you come up with a plot. That's how most Hollywood blockbusters are done these days.
So I've already worked out my trilogy. I'm going to do a film called Priest with an Uzi.
Right.
It's going to star Leslie Nielsen as the priest.
Save
And
it
then
for
the
your...
sequel's going to be called Priest with an Uzi, Pray Harder.
To ensure no one stumbles on his secret payload, the plans are only revealed after you complete 100,000 lines when the decode program commences, and that takes 30 minutes to complete. But unfortunately, Alexei's captured before he leaves the country to promote his game and stops his ability to warn the Western world. But not before he gets a licensing deal in place for the game to be distributed anyway. Cut to a video games tournament at the LA Convention Center, and the 6-year-old autistic boy, Thor, plays the game for 24 hours straight, reaching the magic 100,000th level and setting the decode program in motion. As the tournament's being shown live around the world, the Soviets recognise the code and send a sleeper agent to the convention centre to stop the program and kill the child so that he can never repeat his impossible feat. The final 30 minutes are then played out in real time. Bruce Willis, who, after promising his estranged wife that he'd keep the kids safe, takes him to the Games Championship in LA. Using his wits, fists and a vast collection of non-NYPD issue guns to protect his son from the robot-like assassin Dolph Lundgren. The film ends with the almost indestructible Agent 12 falling into a container and being crushed under the weight of several irregularly shaped pieces of rubble picked out by Thor so they can fill all the available space, distributing the weight evenly enough to cause the assassin's chest to collapse. After the credits have rolled, we see a crack team of US Black Ops soldiers, led by Lucky Akaland, that's Bruce Willis, breaking into the Russian prison to free Alexei and give him asylum in the US. God bless America.
You have to put a lot of thought into that, haven't you?
Of course I have, yeah. It's a fully thought through feature.
Are you aware of the film Mercury Rising?
I've heard the title, but I'm not aware.
Well, that stars Bruce Willis, who's looking after a very gifted young boy who unlocks a secret government code that he finds in a puzzle magazine.
Oh!
so not that dissimilar from
I can't
your
believe I
plot.
plagiarised without even knowing it.
No original ideas, you see.
But if you had made that in 1984, it would have been made a long time before Mercury Rising, and that would have been classed as a rip-off of your film. So, you know. So let's go around everyone and decide whether we think that should be made into a film then. Graham?
If I had a time machine, I would definitely go back in time and make that in 1984.
Pete?
Yep.
Short and sweet. Simon?
Yeah, I think so. Might make a pretty good game as well.
Very good, yeah. Obviously you could throw in the difficulty of whether it's Microsoft or Nintendo that got the license for it as a bit of a subplot, but yeah, I think we'll give you a full house despite a slightly over-convoluted plot. I think we'll say yes. If we were movie producers, we'll take that to production.
Brilliant. Can we start to talk about budget then?
Yeah, it's I can spare about 10p at the moment.
Gordon, if you complete 100,000 lines of Tetris, we'll open up our wallet, the secret code to it.
Thank you.
So let's now look at the next section, which is coming soon. We have chosen a trailer to watch, just like in the previous episode, this time chosen by Graham. Graham, what have you picked for us?
I've picked Captain America Civil War, which is the latest Captain America movie, or the latest in the long line of Marvel movies, which we seem to have recently. And is everyone familiar with the Captain America movies?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I am. I've seen the first two, yeah.
Well, this one looks interesting. I haven't read the comics for years, but I believe it's based on a comic, obviously, of the same title. And from the trailer, you can see that it, again, stars not only Captain America, but teams up with Bucky Barnes, who is a character from The Winter Soldier. Now, Bucky is an old friend of Captain America, and it's not clear from the trailer, but there is obviously some conflict between Bucky and the authorities, and Captain America, for whatever reason, feels compelled to side with Bucky, which brings him against the other Avengers, most notably from the trailer, Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr. So you see this trailer, and it gives you obviously a fair few explosions and action, Captain America and Bucky fighting against other numerous forces, a bit of solid at your hands as well, and at the end, the best scene that probably the trailer reveals, and probably is a bit more than it should have revealed, is you get Bucky and Captain America having a slug fight with Iron Man himself. So it looks quite an exciting movie. Probably the part that most excites me is there was a character in Winter Soldier, which I'm really a big fan of, called the Falcon, which every moment he was in Winter Soldier was just really cool. I think it's a really cool character, and it looks like this character might be featuring a bit more in this movie, which is quite encouraging.
Okay, so let's take a look at that trailer now.
Buck, do you remember me?
Your mom's name was Sarah. You used to wear newspapers in your shoes.
You're a wanted man.
I don't do that anymore.
Well, the people who think you did are coming right now. And they're not planning on taking you alive.
Captain, while a great many people see you as a hero, there are some who'd prefer the word vigilante. You've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. That's something the world can no longer tolerate.
I know how much Bucky means to you. Stay out of this one, please. You only make this worse.
You saying you'll arrest me?
There will be consequences.
Captain, you seem a little defensive. Well, it's been a long day. If we can't accept limitations, we're no better than bad guys.
That's not the way I see it.
Sometimes I want to punch you in your perfect teeth. I just want to make sure we consider all our options. Because people that shoot at you usually wind up shooting at me, too.
You know what's about to happen. Do you really want to punch your way out of this?
What do we do?
We fight. Sorry, Tommy. You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
And we're back. So yeah, that looked pretty interesting. I like the idea of pitting the superheroes against one another rather than just bringing out another one villain that they're all fighting against. So that's kind of cool looking. I was a fan of the first Captain America, and I found the second one incredibly tediously long. So we'll have to see how this one goes. But they do seem to be throwing a lot of heroes into it, so chances for a lot of action sequences, I would think. Let's go to Pete, what do you think?
Well, we've been watching quite a lot of Marvel stuff recently because Frauke's in love with Tom Hiddleston, so Loki. She just it's true. Sorry, she's shouting up the stairs in disgust about the fact that I'm telling the wide world how my wife loves Tom Hiddleston. She even made me go to the theatre to watch a Shakespeare play starring Tom Hiddleston, Coriolanus. Yeah, she made me go and watch that just because that's how much she loves it. So we've been watching quite a lot of Marvel stuff recently, like the Avengers and stuff. But I have to admit, of all of them, Captain America's like the least interesting. He's like Superman. He's just useless.
He's a superhuman super soldier from the 40s with a shield.
I don't know. He's just rubbish.
Okay, I think that was the end of Pete's mini review. Simon?
Yeah, don't know a lot about superheroes, Marvel, Avengers, stuff like that. Not something I really watch. Never been into stuff like that. But it looked quite interesting. It looks like, because it said Civil War, I thought, oh, okay, what's happening here? And then I saw them all fighting against each other. I thought, because I saw Iron Man come out, I thought, oh, it's going to be the usual. They're all gang up, and they're all going to, like you say, the super villain turns up. They all sort it out. But no, they all started fighting among themselves. And I thought, well, that's, for someone who doesn't know a lot about it, that'd be quite interesting, a different twist. So yeah, it looked something that I'd probably follow up and have a look at.
Gordon?
Generally, as Marvel films go on, they're getting worse. And they're just so overly reliant on CGI. And CGI really is ruining the action film. I don't mind big explosions and buildings and everything being CGI, but it's when they make the people CGI, it doesn't work. Spider-Man, all of the recent Spider-Man films are awful because of the CGI Spider-Man, who's too flexible, too fast, it just doesn't look like a person. And you can see the difference between the actor and the CGI. So I can't say I was particularly looking forward to the film. Knowing that he fights another superhero is good, but to be honest, Superman versus Batman's coming, and I think that looks far more interesting.
You're really looking forward to Batman versus Superman?
I actually am, yeah. Have you seen the latest trailer for that?
I refuse to watch any trailer to do with it because it just sounds like complete nonsense. I mean,
But
Batman's just a bloke in a suit and Superman's pretty much indestructible.
Got gadgets.
Yeah, those gadgets are good against a man who can, like, kill you with his laser eyes.
No, but that's the point. That's what the film's a Batman film, isn't it? And I'm sure Batman's going to kick Superman's ass. That's got to be the way they're doing it. Or if they're not, then I'm never going to go and watch a DC film again. But Wonder Woman's in it, and have you seen the trailer? Wonder Woman comes into the trailer at the end, and she looks fantastic. I can't wait to see that film.
You did mention Spider-Man there. Obviously, Spider-Man's going to be making an appearance in this latest Marvel film as well, just to tie all the franchises together once and for all.
Spider-Man used to be my favourite. Actually, no, I'm not going to go into that because we've got a superhero theme coming up on a future show, so let's not waste all our superhero talk when this is supposed to be about Captain America.
Okay, anyone else got anything to say on Captain America?
One thing I will say about Captain America is you can't have an actor playing two different superheroes, and him playing Johnny Flame in Fantastic Four and then playing Captain America just pisses on everybody's belief in superheroes. So shame on you, Marvel.
These superheroes aren't real.
Oh, shut up.
They're just Lego games these days.
So, time now to start talking about our main topic of conversation, and we are now just days away from the release of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and the hype machine is building up. There's trailers on the internet, there's spoilers all over the place, so we're mainly not going to talk about The Force Awakens. Instead, we're going to focus on the highs and lows of what's already been and gone, the Star Wars trilogies that have been made so far. But before that, myself and Gordon went to an independent Star Wars fan convention at the weekend called For the Love of the Force. What did you think of it, Gordon?
For an hour, it was really good. There were some fantastic models and a full-size X-Wing fighter, which was pretty cool. An AT-ST, which was very cool. Lots of little miniature models, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think they had a bit of more of a response to it in terms of people wanting to go than they expected, and they had to extend the opening hours and split it over 2 sessions. Not necessarily thinking that was a great idea, certainly not for the people who were working there from 7 in the morning till 11 at night for 3 days in a row. But as a visitor, yeah, it was enjoyable. There was some nice stuff to see. Bought a few little bits and bobs as well. So yeah, it was alright. I'm not sure I'd pay a massive amount of money to go to it in future, but for the right amount of money it was not too bad.
I think for a first event it was good. I think they need more content, and I'm sure they'll tour this one because the size of those models that they've built, the X-Wing and the AT-ST, they're going to have to do it in other places, or they're not going to just stick them in a huge warehouse. But then if they're going to do another one and want me to pay again to go and see it, they need to add more content. There was a lot to see but nothing to do, which was my biggest problem with it.
I agree. They needed the orchestra was a good thing actually. They had the orchestra playing some of the music from the films, but yeah, you needed something a bit more interactive, like maybe some talks from some people who were in it or something like that.
The video games were there. There was
were they?
But the problem with Star Wars video games is most of them are pretty rubbish. You know, there are some good ones, but not that many.
Some good ones. There's a lot of good Star Wars games.
How would you know, Graham?
Yes, I've just finished an article on Star Wars games, and I was moderately surprised, actually, of how many of them were actually quite good, or certainly well received at the time, anyway.
And where will that article be appearing, Graham?
It'll be appearing in Retro magazine, which is an American retro magazine that started, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. Started with a Kickstarter. Every issue I've been writing a UK column for it, and I pitched a Star Wars themed article, and this is what I ended up doing.
And is that a print magazine or is it an online thing?
Yeah, no, it's print, and it's also available for download as well. I believe there's a downloadable edition.
And where would we find it?
www.readretro.com is their website.
Cool.
I might look into that.
So moving on then, let's talk about the classic Star Wars trilogy first, and we're going to start with the first time you all saw Star Wars. Tell us your memories and your thoughts about the first time you watched Star Wars. Now, I'm going to kick this one off. I'm a little bit too young to have seen the original Star Wars, and I'm going to call it Star Wars, not A New Hope. To me, it'll always be Star Wars.
It was when it was released.
Exactly. Yeah. So I saw the original Star Wars on TV, on ITV, early 80s, probably 82, 83, I would imagine. Recorded on Christmas Day or maybe Boxing Day. And I used to watch it every Sunday morning for probably 2 or 3 years, and so much so that I can still remember all the adverts in the ad breaks. Adverts for things like the Intellivision, the Bedford Astrovan, the Vileda Supermop. Do you remember the advert for the Terry's Chocolate Orange with the guy going and retrieving it Indiana Jones style from behind his
big bowling boulder, yeah.
Yeah, that was in it as well. So that's my memories of Star Wars, the first time I saw Star Wars, and probably the next 200 times I saw it after that as well. So let's move on to Gordon. Your first memory of Star Wars?
Well, I am old enough to have seen it back in the day. I saw it on its original release. It came out on the 27th of December over here in 1977. I think I went at some point in January of 78. But yeah, first film my mum ever took me and my brother to the cinema. She tried to take us to see Popeye, I think it was, or something like that. And it was full, so they couldn't get us in. And because my mum didn't want to see it so much, she asked them if I could sit on her knee through the film, if there was room for her and my brother, and I'd sit on her knee. The fact that I was 6 years old and too big to be sitting on my mum's knee didn't seem to matter to her. But she had to sit through Star Wars and hated every second of it. Me and my brother absolutely loved it.
Next, we will ask Graham.
The first film I saw at the cinema was Battle Beyond the Stars, which was a Star Wars rip-off, and Star Wars Magnificent Seven rip-off. The first time I saw Star Wars, Matt, I think was the same viewing that you saw, because it was definitely on ITV, and it was around Christmas time. My dad, at the time, the company he worked for owned a luxury flat in London, and every Christmas we'd go up there, and it was great staying at this flat. It was brilliant, and I remember it was back in the day when films like this, when they're on TV, it was a real event, and the whole family would gather around and watch it. And although my parents, a bit like Gordon's, had no interest in this sort of film whatsoever, we all sat there and watched it. And then we finished watching it, and I wanted to watch it straight away. I wanted to watch it every Sunday like you, Matt, but there was no video recorder, and in those days everything wasn't as accessible as it is now. So that was it. I watched Star Wars once and then spent probably the next couple of years trying to watch it again.
I should probably have mentioned that my video copy was on a Betamax, the superior video format.
It's funny you mentioned Betamax, because it was only this month, I believe, that Sony have stopped producing Betamax tapes.
I know, I found that amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Next up, Simon, you're the oldest among us. Sorry to have to say that. So you must have seen Star Wars at the cinema.
I did indeed. I saw it straight away at Christmas with my dad. He managed to book tickets to the Odeon Cinema in Sidcup in Kent. It wasn't a big cinema, but it was all really exciting. I can still remember walking through the foyer and getting some sweets and stuff, and everyone was going crazy with this new film, thinking, what is this going to be? This is going to be something great. And they were right. And I remember sitting through it, getting ready. For once, I didn't speak for the whole film. Just sat there getting excited and jumping up and down, and everyone cheering and stuff. When they attack the Death Star, and everyone goes crazy. It's like, it's fantastic, and I still remember it now. I was about just not even quite 9, so it's fantastic.
And finally, we move to the youngest member of the crew, Pete. What are your memories?
I think the first time I saw Star Wars, strangely, I think I saw not Star Wars, but Empire Strikes Back. Before I saw Star Wars. Again, like on telly, I was just a kid, and I thought it was a bit rubbish.
Okay.
Do you still think that?
No, I was wrong. Kids are quite often wrong. Kids are stupid.
So, having watched The Empire Strikes Back and had the big reveal at the end, you then subsequently watched the original Star Wars, and you're like, I know who this guy is, and why are you behaving like you are, Luke?
No, not really. I don't know. I think I was more interested in playing with Micro Machines. I didn't really watch it.
Okay, fair enough. So let's move on to the next question. So now we're going to look at highlights of the original trilogy, particular moments of any of the films that stood out. And Pete, what about your thoughts?
I would say, well, the thing I like about the original trilogy the most is Han Solo. So that kind of like down-to-earth, everyman kind of character. My favourite moment would be, you're nothing but a scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Good moment.
Who are you calling scruffy looking?
Yeah, he does have some of the best sort of comeback lines in the whole film. I like the bit in Star Wars where he's winding Luke up just after they've escaped from the Death Star, and he's basically saying, "Oh, do you think a princess and a guy like me?" And Luke's like, "No." That's one of my personal favourites. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to Graham next then.
My favourite part of Star Wars, the original film, is when they get trapped in the garbage compactor. I thought that was a brilliant scene, really tense scene. I know it's played strictly like that because C-3PO and R2-D2 just happen to realise what's going on just in time, but I really enjoyed that scene, especially with the monster inside it that dragged Luke underwater as well. And my favourite scene from Empire Strikes Back is the opening scene on Hoth. I'm not actually a huge fan of Empire. I know most people, it's their favourite one of the trilogy, but the opening scene on Hoth, I think it's just a brilliant, really enjoyable and exciting. To me, it's a bit of a shame what happens afterwards, but I really love that. I really love that section of that movie.
Controversial words there, Graham. I think that you'll be getting some comeback on that fairly soon. Gordon, do you want to share your memories?
Yeah, I think there's the two, and the one that Graham's just mentioned, the opening on Hoth is just stunning. When you see the AT-ATs walking and the way they take them down with the tow rope and everything is just an absolute masterpiece of science fiction.
Can I just say, Gordon, sorry to interrupt you, I know this is your bit, but one thing I always thought about the Hoth bit, why didn't they just spray water on the ice to make like the ice really slippery?
Yeah, good idea. That would have made it more of a Benny Hill kind of opening to the film, wouldn't it? So Hoth is absolutely one of probably the highlight of the whole original trilogy. One of the other things that I really used to love was the Land Speeder. It was the most coolest vehicle and movie car I'd ever seen. And the scene where it's speeding fast over the desert and you can see underneath that it's actually hovering. As a young child, I believed that was real, and that was the car I was going to own when I was older.
I actually think the Sandcrawler is really cool, and you could get a remote control Sandcrawler. I'd love that.
It's cool because of the size of it.
Yeah.
I mean, because you really got a sense of the scale on that vehicle. So yeah, I loved the Sandcrawler, but the Land Cruiser, is that what it was called?
Land Speeder.
The Land Speeder, yeah.
Land Cruiser's Toyota.
So moving on then, Simon, favourite moments from the original trilogy?
The cantina is probably one of my favourite bits. All the different creatures, all the little subplots and stories. It's pretty good. Do like a bit of that. And obviously figuring down in the band, the old all that stuff is good. My favourite bit from Empire Strikes Back is the bit where the Han Solo flies the Millennium Falcon right at the bridge of the Star Destroyer and then disappears, and he magnetically grabs onto the side of the ship. And then I love it when they let all the garbage go and he just drifts off with it, and then Boba Fett obviously knows what he's up to, and suddenly he appears behind him and they both fly off and he follows him to Landau's place. But I like the way he just sticks to the side of the ship. I think that's quite a clever move, quite a clever thing.
I think that is an absolutely brilliant scene, and I think that shows that George Lucas has got some brilliant ideas. It's just a shame he didn't just come up with the ideas and get somebody else to direct his films for him. He's absolutely a brilliant story writer, just not a good storyteller.
And then my favourite bit of the Return of the Jedi is obviously Princess Leia's outfit. So when she's tied up with Jabba the Hutt. So I've got to say that it's.
Yeah, I think we all loved that outfit back when we were round about 10 years old or whatever.
And still now.
Indeed. Okay, and to finish off, my highlight is pretty much any scene involving R2-D2 and C-3PO. I think they're just such clever characters. I think I'd love to have been in the cinema to be a fly on the wall and see how people reacted to basically the opening scenes of Star Wars. Is just this golden robot and this thing that looks like a dustbin that just makes squeaks and chirping noises, just walking across the desert bickering. And we all know those characters so well now that we know what they're like, but to have seen that and not have any kind of frame of reference for it at all must have just been amazing. And I think what Simon touched on about the cantina as well is that Star Wars created a world that no one had ever seen before, and yet somehow it seemed convincing that it was real, which I think is quite one of the sort of standout things that comes from that original trilogy.
I think that's the thing where you say, the two robots bickering. The whole world was something new. Me, as a 6-year-old watching the film, it was something I'd never seen science fiction before. I didn't even know what that meant, and seeing another world that is different to this one, and real life robots. Because we all had toys of robots as a child, but they were just little blocky things. They weren't actually alive and could speak, even if they spoke a different language. It was an unbelievable experience to see that, and I do remember being in the cinema and sitting there, eyes wide open, and just thinking, "Wow, it's another world. It's just unbelievable."
It was just like the scale of the ships at the start when you see the ship going over the top and it's chasing Princess Leia's little ship. You think, look at the size of that bloody ship, and then of course the Death Star's incredible, and then it blows the planet up. And it's like, hold on a sec, what's going on? That's not been done before. That's amazing.
Spoiler alert!
Oh.
Right, well, let's move on then. Obviously, Star Wars trilogy came and went, and then about 15 years later, we had the special editions where George Lucas went back, brought in a few scenes that had been removed due to technological constraints and so forth, tidied up the video and the audio. So 1997, the special editions were released into the cinemas. So let's go around quickly and say some good and bad points of the special editions. And Gordon first.
Yeah, well, I think I'm a fan in video gaming of HD remakes, so it would be hypocritical of me to say that somebody shouldn't tinker with a film when you've gone from such basic video format to Blu-ray. So I'm not going to say you shouldn't have tinkered with them and tidied them up and made them nice. What I do object to is messing about with scenes that don't need messing about. And some of the stuff that's been done to particularly Tatooine just kills me. I can't watch some of the Tatooine scenes where you've got banthas and things wandering past that just are so it's another rant against CGI, but it's just awful. Some of it, it's so obviously put in there to make an impact and it just doesn't work.
I think CGI has dated quite rapidly when you look at the early CGI. Pete can probably maybe give us a bit more insight into this, having worked in the special effects world. What do you think of the special effects in particular in the special editions?
Well, I think you're right. I think if there's some animal or a character or something moving, then yeah, it can date. It does just look bad, but they did do some things well. It's not all bad. Like, I quite liked the tidying up of Cloud City, adding in windows and sort of opening it up a bit, because it was just sort of a white set before, and then putting in these sort of, actual, giving you a feel that you are in a city that's sort of hovering above the clouds. That kind of worked for me. But yeah, you're totally right that having, dinosaurs walking about was just daft.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the scene where they put Jabba back in was done reasonably well for the time, but it wasn't really necessary for the film. The thing I hate most of the special editions really is the musical number that they put into Jabba's palace, where they CGI'd up the woman with the lips that was singing and added another guy with a big mouth and stuff, and they just turned it into this dreadful musical number.
Yeah, I think if you was asking for our worst moments, that's mine. There you have it.
Why change the music at the end of Jedi?
Well, there's that as well, yeah. We could dwell. I think we'll be talking about the end of Jedi and how bad it is in due course. Graham, any comments on what's been said?
Not really. I kind of agree with it. The only difference is for me is that, unlike Simon and Gordon, having not seen the first two movies in the cinema, these re-releases did give me the opportunity to watch them in the cinema with a bunch of like-minded people. So there's lots of things that I don't remember too much about Empire and Return of the Jedi, but there's lots of things that they did with the original film which I thought were quite good. Like, they took out the stupid stormtrooper banging his head on the door when it went up. They added loads more stormtroopers in the section where Han Solo runs around the corner and straight into a bunch of them. And I believe they also added a load more rebel fighters in the final scene.
Yeah.
Made their attack look a bit more credible in the fact that it's not just got like 3 X-Wings and a couple of Y-Wings attacking this huge space station. But yeah, for me, being able to see the films in the cinema was a great boon, and I remember really enjoying all these special editions.
So let's move on a few years later then, and this is where I think some ill feeling towards Star Wars might begin to come out. Everyone was very excited in 1999. The hype was probably even bigger than it is for the new film, for the Star Wars Episode 1, the first new Star Wars film at that point for 16 years. So let's talk about the prequel trilogy. Where did it all go wrong? So let's go to Graham first.
Where did it all go wrong? Well, I think Gordon's got to agree with me with this, because we've chatted about it briefly before, but I didn't actually mind The Phantom Menace that much. I wasn't hugely enthused by it, but I thought it had enough good moments to be quite entertaining. I remember actually going to the cinema twice to see it. The lightsaber battle at the end is just stunning, really. And the space battle at the end is pretty cool as well. I mean, the Trade Federation plot is a load of bollocks, to be honest, but I generally thought it was okay. Jar Jar Binks obviously kind of dragged it down for me. But I thought it wasn't actually too bad. I mean, it was really, really slated at the time, and I found myself enjoying it and wondering why I enjoyed it so much. Then things really took a nosedive with the next film, which I think most of us will agree is probably the worst film, Attack of the Clones. There were 1 or 2 scenes in that which I liked, but I still to this day cannot believe that out of the thousands of people they must have interviewed and auditioned for the role of Anakin Skywalker, they chose Hayden Christensen, because he's just a walking plank of wood. It's just unbelievable, really. They could have stuck some DIY wood there or something, and it would have been better, because it's just ridiculous. And from the start, that ruined the film. And I went up to Leicester Square with my friend to see it, and we're sitting in this cinema, and it's not going well, to be honest. And we're kind of trying our best to enjoy it against this. And there's this scene, I can't remember when it is, it's about halfway through, when he's having visions about his mum. And he's basically, there's a shot of Hayden Christensen lying in bed, groaning, looking like he's masturbating. And then suddenly he starts saying, "Mum, mother, mum, mum." And the whole audience just broke out into rapturous laughter. And we're like, oh my God, what's going on here? Everyone's laughing at Star Wars, and that is just so wrong. It's got one good scene in it, Attack of the Clones, which is set on, I think it's called Kamino, which is where the clones are being made, which is a really cool scene where Obi-Wan gets attacked by Jango Fett. But apart from that, it's a lamentable movie. And then finally, Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion, redeemed the trilogy a little bit. but the way in which Anakin goes from sort of like a good guy to a bad guy in the space of about 3/4 of an hour, and it's never really made totally clear why he goes down that path so quickly is a bit bad in my opinion. But otherwise, I thought that film was enjoyable. So actually, apart from Attack of the Clones, I don't think they're not obviously a patch on the original films, but I don't think the prequels are quite as bad as everyone makes out.
Well, I think I'm going to guess pretty much everyone agrees with that. I know Gordon does. I know I do. Any counterpoint on what made prequel trilogy so bad, Gordon?
I actually really like Phantom Menace. It's not that I think it's okay or it's it's all right. I actually really like it, and I remember going to the cinema to see that, sitting low in my chair, eyes wide open, mouth open, just thinking, wow, this is Star Wars is back, and watching the pod race scene, which people seem to slag off the pod race scene, and I don't understand it. That was just pure excitement watching that. And there was one of the newspapers or websites or something at the time had people watching it for the first time and wired them up to heart monitors to see which parts of the film the heart rate went up at, and the results from that pod race scene were like through the roof of excitement, and I really like that scene. I think the Trade Federation story is a bit silly. I think Jar Jar Binks, I don't mind Jar Jar Binks. It doesn't upset me like he upsets other people. The bit where he gets his tongue on the electricity thing and he can't talk because he's electrocuted his tongue, that scene I wish they would cut. But other than that, I don't mind Jar Jar. That first film was great. For me, that's the third best Star Wars film. Then you get to the absolute worst, and it's not just a bad Star Wars film, it's just a bad film. Third one brings it back up. So for me, that trilogy isn't a failure. One of the films is an absolute godforsaken failure, but the trilogy for it itself is quite good.
Can we now ask someone who's going to talk some sense? I'm sorry, but
Pete, preach to us.
I'll speak about one particular part of the film that really bugged me, and it really bugged me because it doesn't seem to bug anybody else. And that is the fight with Yoda, where Yoda just starts bouncing around like a little... I don't know, it's like, what's that about? Like, when you see it as a kid and you have Yoda and he's like the super Jedi master, the Lord of all, he's like the best Jedi ever. Well, normally when someone's A, old, and B, like, has the wisdom and the power and is like really adept at something, then it should be effortless. They shouldn't jump around like a blue ass fly.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I expected it to be like a really serious fight, but I expected like all of his moves to be really well considered and like perfectly timed and just really gentle and smooth, and not just like, and now I'm going to confuse you by bouncing about.
But isn't that why it was so great, that it was exactly what you didn't expect?
That just makes it wrong.
I agree with Pete. I thought it was pretty terrible. I think the problem with the whole trilogy is Lucas, when he made the original trilogy, he'd got good movie makers around him. You've got other directors, you've got other screenwriters. I think when he made the prequel trilogy, he was just surrounded by a bunch of yes men that just said, George, whatever you want to do, it's fine, we'll make a shitload of money out of it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I just think he just lost the plot. The payoff is the last half hour of Revenge of the Sith, but I'm not sure the journey to it was worth it. So that's me. Simon, anything to add?
For me, The Phantom Menace will always be a great film, and I always look forward to it because, amazingly, and this was completely by coincidence, I flew to America on the day it was released in the States, which is obviously a few months before it was here. When we got there, we literally went to New York, dumped our stuff at the hotel, went straight with these mad Dutch people all dressed up as all the characters of Star Wars to the theatre and watched it. And the American crowd obviously were absolutely rapturous and cheering at everything and going crazy. And the Dutch guys were loons anyway, so they were like every little thing. C-3PO comes onto the stage and, and everyone's going mad. And so I enjoy it for that, and I've always had a soft spot for it now because that's when I saw it first over there. Attack of the Clones, totally agree with everybody. Awful. Cringing, just so cringeworthy. I wouldn't look away from the screen when I wanted to watch that. I just sat there with open mouth and wide-eyed like Gordon was earlier, but not because I'm in wonderment in what the fuck is this? Absolute cack. Last one, yeah, I didn't mind it. I do like Count Dooku. I think he was a good character. Christopher Lee played him like the evil sort of guy like he did in his Dracula days. Very creepy, very right, but not used enough. And obviously it just didn't really work. But General Grievous, again, quite a good enemy. But the third one, yeah, it came back towards the end. not bad. Hayden Christensen, totally agree with the others. Dreadful casting. Natalie Portman I quite like. I think she's quite good as Queen Amidala. Does all right. But I don't think they're a disaster. Oh yeah, I don't think they're a disaster. But I'm just agreeing with most people. It's just good, awful, and not so bad at the end.
No, I have to say, I'm absolutely astonished at the love for the Phantom Menace. I think it's just appalling. It's like watching the BBC Parliament channel. It's just shocking.
It's not that bad. But it had the best character out of all three of those films, and that's Darth Maul. I know they got rid of him, but he was cracking. He was great, and when he eventually just appeared on the ship with Qui-Gon Jinn just coming to, and they see him fighting him, and they didn't know anything about him, and he just appears, and then they have that massive battle with him with the double-headed lightsaber. I think that's great. I think he's a great character.
That scene at the end with Duel of the Fates playing, and that scene of the battle of those two against Darth Maul is one of the highlights of the Star Wars series.
Definitely,
surely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Excellent stuff.
While we're on the prequel trilogy, has anybody watched the new fan edit? I can't remember what it's called, but it's all three films cut down into 2 hours, and it's been doing the rounds on the internet recently. It's actually a very competent cut of the movies, and it works as a single movie covering all three. My biggest issue is they cut virtually everything out of the Phantom Menace when they should have cut everything out of the Attack of the Clones. So whilst it's done well and it works, they've, for me, got it wrong. But I assume nobody else has seen that.
No, but it sounds like it might be worth a watch. More worth a watch than spending 2 hours watching Attack of the Clones anyway. So, moving on, hopefully George Lucas did a good thing and sold Lucasfilm to Disney for the small amount of $4 billion. Disney then immediately put into production Star Wars Episode 7, bringing back the three original cast members, Han, Luke and Leia. So, we'll quickly go round. What are your hopes and expectations for The Force Awakens? Pete?
I don't know, really. Like, it's never going to have the same impact as the original three, and it can never be as bad as episodes 1, 2, and 3. So, just make it a good film. Like, if it's as good as the Star Trek films, then I think most people will be happy.
You're referring to the Star Trek films that J.J. Abrams has done recently, yeah. Okay, I agree. My take on it, and we will go to the others in a second, but my take on it is, I've seen some of the stuff that Disney have done since they picked up Lucasfilm, for the mere $4 billion, and it's been really good. I don't know if anyone's seen Star Wars Rebels, but it's like old Star Wars. It's a kids TV show cartoon, but it's really good. And also, the thing that you must watch if you haven't watched it is Lego Star Wars Droid Tales, which is where R2-D2 or C-3PO primarily tells the story of the original 6 films, episodes 1 to 6. But the first one is just so funny because it takes place after the Battle of Endor, and C-3PO and Disney basically rip the piss out of the prequel trilogy. It's absolutely brilliant, and if you haven't watched it, you must watch it. You can probably pick it up on YouTube or something. So my hopes are basically much like Pete. If it's the 4th best Star Wars film, and I don't really expect it to be anything more than the 4th best Star Wars film, then I'll be happy. Graham?
A lot of people don't seem to like J.J. Abrams films, but I like Pete, I've seen the Star Trek films that he's done, and I think they're great popcorn movies. I don't see any problem with them whatsoever, and I think that style of directing and direction will fit well with the Star Wars franchise. I just hope that the acting, there's a couple of signs in the trailers that maybe the acting of the young girl, I can't remember her name, but is not exactly top notch, but obviously you can't really judge her from the trailer. You've got to see the whole movie. So I just hope that, with Lucas absent now, the script is better, there's no cringeworthy dialogue. The special effects are naturally going to be full of CGI. Hopefully they won't rely too much on that. And it'll just have a lot of pathos, which the original trilogy had, and which was, despite the fact we liked some of the prequel trilogy, it didn't quite have the same pathos as the original films.
I think you just touched on something there about the special effects. I don't know if anyone's seen the little reel they did at the Comic-Con. It's about 3.5 minutes, and they're using a lot of practical effects. They're shooting it with the same kind of film stock that they shot the original trilogy. They're using animatronic monsters rather than CGI monsters for the most part, or aliens. Obviously the spaceship scenes are going to be CGI, but I think J.J. Abrams, he knows the weight that's on his shoulders, and I don't think they can make it a terrible film, because if they do, it's $4 billion down the drain. So, Gordon, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've deliberately avoided the trailers. I saw the very first trailer and I've refused to watch anything else because I don't want to know too much, and I want to be there wide-eyed and in surprise when everything happens. So I'm not talking from any kind of knowledge of what is going to be in there. But I'd love it to be a good film, just like Pete says. Make it a good film, and you can get away with it. If it's a good film and it just isn't Star Wars, at least it's a good film. But to make a good Star Wars film is hard. It's very hard. I mean, they're already onto a slight winner that Lucas isn't involved in it anymore, and it's quite sad that so many people think that the guy who single-handedly created this thing is the guy who's single-handedly killing the thing. So it's a bit sad. But if they can make it a good film, great. But when you said, Matt, that you don't think it'll be any better than the fourth best, well, I'd like to think that you obviously know that I'm a big Rocky fan. Well, Rocky 6 is proof that you can go back to film series and you can make a good film that not only is a good film in its own right, it fits with the rest of the films, and it is probably up there with the best of the films. So I've got very high hopes for this film. I'm sure that I'll get shot down, but I've got high hopes that J.J. Abrams is going to make a good film. My biggest concern is, after watching the Star Trek films, I loved both of the J.J. Abrams Star Trek films, but on second watching, the first one, I really didn't like it. First time I saw it, brilliant. Second time I saw it, I was very disappointed and thought, I'm probably never going to choose to watch this again. That's something you can't do with a Star Wars film. They've got to stand up to repeat watching, because we're going to be watching this 9-film trilogy for the rest of our lives. So no pressure.
Simon, you're the only person who hasn't had a comment about this.
I just agree with everyone. It's just, Morgan's just summed it up really in what he's just said. It's got to be a good film as well as a good Star Wars film. It's going to be hard. I don't know if they're going to pull it off, but got to go in there with an open mind and just enjoy it for what it is and see how it goes. I haven't got high hopes for it, but if it proves it wrong, I'll be more than happy.
It's good to hear that no one's got too high expectations for it. I think we've all got our expectations pitched roughly the right level. We hope it's going to be great, but we're not going to be too disappointed if it's a little bit disappointing. So finally, just a quick note on where the franchise goes from here. Obviously, Disney have invested $4 billion in Star Wars. They're going to want to recoup that money. So we've already got Rogue One coming out next December. Then we've got Episode 8. Episode 9, which they've already chosen the directors for those two. We've also got a Han Solo origin story, a Boba Fett story, all in the works as well. Any thoughts on any of those things in particular?
Well, I think this next film's going to be the key thing, really, but I'm pretty sure, I can't remember who said it, but it will be a decent film, I'm sure. But the spin-offs all sound good. I like the sound of Rogue One, to be honest. I just hope that they don't overdo it, but I'm sure they will do.
Pete?
Who are the directors, then? Why are they not just using J.J. Abrams again? Well,
probably because he's been signed up to do something else. But the director of Episode 8 is going to be a guy called Rian Johnson, who did Looper, and he also directed some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad, including the one with the fly, if anyone's seen that, which I think is one of the best episodes of the whole thing, and also the episode where they have the big showdown in the desert in the last season, which is rated one of the best rated episodes on TV of any TV show. So he's got some good pedigree. And the third one is directed by the guy who did Jurassic World. I don't know what else he did.
Yeah, and which film's that?
That'll be Star Wars Episode 9 will be directed by that guy. So we'll have to see. Obviously, it's all down to having a good story and all that kind of stuff as well. I'm quite excited about Rogue One. I'm actually more excited about that than I am about this one, because it tells a story of how the rebels obtained the Death Star plans, which, just before the events of Star Wars: A New Hope, and it's being made by the guy who made Monsters, which I thought was a pretty cool film, fairly low budget sci-fi film.
Can we just go back to Force Awakens for a second?
Of course.
One thing that I'm not yet sure about is the development of the lightsaber. So, we started off with just your standard lightsaber. It came in 3 colours, and there you go. Then, as the prequels started to evolve, we had the double-ended lightsaber, which was fucking cool. Then you had the walking stick lightsaber, which, what was that all about? Now we've got Kylo Ren with this sword lightsaber that's like in a crucifix. I mean, where are they going to take it next? Are we going to have a pole vault or something? Are we going to have a banana-shaped lightsaber? I think that they're picking so many cliches to try and do something different when the lightsaber was cool enough as it is. You didn't need to mess with it.
Yeah, I think it's just, the cynic in you would say it's just a new toy to sell, isn't it, with the crossguard lightsaber.
Oh, is that what it's called?
It's called a crossguard lightsaber, apparently, yeah. You forgot Mace Windu's purple lightsaber as well, which was demanded by Samuel L. Jackson, which is just another reason why Attack of the Clones is garbage. Samuel L. Jackson said, I don't want a green or a blue lightsaber, I want a purple one. And George Lucas says, okay then.
But that's another reason why Samuel L. Jackson is ace.
I suppose, yeah. Yeah, okay, so just to close off then on Star Wars, quickly round the table, best Star Wars film, Gordon?
That should be an easy question, but it's not. I think that with any trilogy, 1 is usually your favourite, 2 is usually the best, and Star Wars is no different. 1's my favourite, 2's the best.
So episode 2.
Sorry, 4 is my favourite, 5 is the best.
Okay, Graham?
Star Wars: A New Hope is my favourite, and it's also the best as well.
Okay, Pete?
Yep, number 4.
Si?
Yeah, favourite and best, I think. The Empire is good as well.
And it's Empire Strikes Back for me. I think it just takes everything that Star Wars did and just makes it that little bit better, and also the bad guys basically win, which is always a good thing. Not happy with just going with favourites. Let's put them in order, best to worst. Gordon?
Okay, I'll go 5, 4, 1, 6, 3, 2.
Graham?
4, 6, 1, 5, 3, 2.
Oh dear, you're banned from future Movie Muse TV episodes. Pete?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's it, just discount the prequel trilogy. Boggy?
4, 5, 1, 6, and 3, 2.
Okay, and I'm going to go 5, 4, 6, 3, 1, 2. Okay?
So multiple of you have episode 1 above any of the original trilogy.
Above Jedi?
No, I didn't.
No, me and Buggy did.
Yeah.
Graham had it above Empire.
I know. I think all his opinions on Star Wars are null and void after that. Okay, so that's enough about Star Wars. Let's move on and talk about Film Club, where I chose a film, everyone watched it, and we're all going to share our views on it. We also asked our followers on Facebook and Twitter to comment on it, and we'll be showing those comments on the screen. So, just to remind you, the film was Star Crash. It's a blatant rip-off of Star Wars, released in 1978, fairly low budget. It's got a few reasonably well-known names in it. David Hasselhoff, Christopher Plummer, Caroline Munro. She is basically the star of it, playing a character called Stella Star, who is tasked with rescuing David Hasselhoff's character, who's a prince of some description. So what did we all think, Graham?
I thought this film was brilliant. I watched it with my 2 sons, aged 4 and 7, after getting inside info that it was suitable for them, and I must admit we all loved it from start to finish. It is absolutely terrible, there's no doubt about it, but I think you have to take into consideration that they obviously have no money, and the acting is awful, the special effects are dreadful. But I don't know, the film, I mean, you guys know I'm a fan of bad films in general. It just seems to have...
like episode 1?
Yeah, it just seems to have a bit of something to it, you know, things like, for instance, Hollywood blockbusters like Transformers. It just seems to have a bit of heart and soul, and it is absolutely mental the way it is, and the acting is awful, and they've dubbed over. I think they didn't have enough money to record the sound at the time, so they dub over all the voices, and they didn't even have enough money to take Caroline Munro from the UK to America to do that, so she's dubbed by someone else. But the film is really enjoyable. There's a load of standout scenes for it for me. There's some absolutely amazing lines. My favourite line is Christopher Plummer towards the end when they're fighting against time because this planet's going to blow up, and he says, "You know, my son," which is played by David Hasselhoff, "I wouldn't be Emperor of the Galaxy if I didn't have a few powers at my disposal. Imperial battleship halt the flow of time. And I just thought that was brilliant. He just came out with that line, and the battleship went, yep. And they came up with a total arbitrary 3 minutes they had. It's got a terrible robot in it. It's basically just a man with a helmet on.
He's brilliant.
I loved him. He was my favourite character.
Change, and he's got a great line at the end. I mean, I'm kind of spoiling it a bit here, but David Hasselhoff and Carolyn Munro kind of get it on at the end, and the robot, they're sort of saying each other's name, and the robot's caught in between, and he's going, ooh, 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 and he's like, he makes some comment like, I wish I'd been turned on earlier, or something like that. It's just absolute complete nonsense, the film, from start to finish, but we just loved it. I don't know what else to say. We really enjoyed it. I mean, it's kind of, the special effects are kind of summed up at the end. The baddie spaceship is a hand, isn't it? And my boys loved that. They thought it was great. And then when it goes into defence mode, it goes into a fist.
I thought that was actually quite cool.
It was quite cool,
an original idea.
And my son said to me, not about that one, but about one of the other ships. He says, "Daddy, all the ships look like they're made out of Lego." Kind of just sums it up, because they probably were. So that is my take on this movie. I really enjoyed it. I had great fun watching it, and I'm not saying I'd watch it again, but I thought it was a decent watch for an hour and a half. It kept us entertained.
Okay, yeah. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but the special effects looked like it was like a cereal box covered with model kit parts in some places, and they hadn't even bothered painting the model kit parts. It was just like throw some glue on a cereal box and then throw a load of model kit parts on it. Pete, what did you think?
I thought it was nearly as bad as Hawk the Slayer.
Nearly as bad?
Yeah, Hawk the Slayer is pretty shocking.
Any particular moments that you recall over and above any other?
Under and below others, maybe? I don't know, we didn't make it all the way through. As I say, my wife refused to go beyond halfway. So we didn't quite make it to the Hoff, which was a bit of a disappointment, I must admit.
Gordon, do you think?
I loved it and hated it in equal measure. I think comparisons with Star Wars are obvious but misplaced. I don't think it's anything like Star Wars. I think it's Flash Gordon. It's just it's the same cheesy costumes, same cheesy cheap sets. One of the worst things about the set was the star field whenever you saw space, because it looked like the Christmas lights. The stars were all multicoloured. Now, what universe has got multicoloured stars like that? That actually made it less believable, and I don't know whether that was a deliberate thing from the director. I'm not sure, but one of the things I take issue with are that it's called a low budget movie. Now, the budget for this film was $4 million, and if you think that a blockbuster film like Star Wars was $11 million,
it's a bit of a gulf there. Yeah,
I mean, well, no, I don't think it is that much of a gulf.
A gulf in quality, I meant. Yeah, for the money spent.
Star Wars is more than 3 times better quality than Star Crash. So yeah, I mean, there are things I really liked about it. I thought the Hoff was pretty good. I thought the main lady, whatever her name was, Caroline some or other, she was pretty good. I liked El, the robot, with his Texas accent. I thought he was ace. I thought the Count was terrible. He thought he was in a Flash Gordon movie, I think.
Ming the Merciless.
Yeah, I don't think he
said, why does he keep laughing?
Because that's what evil people do. But one of the things that surprised me is how good the score is. It's a really good proper score.
John Barry did the score.
By John Barry, who won 5 Oscars for his music. I mean, he also won a Golden Raspberry for the score to the Legend of the Lone Ranger. But he's a proper Oscar-winning composer, and he did this crappy little film in 1920.
Apparently they went to great pains to make sure he didn't see any part of the movie.
Very wise. But it is a very, very good score, and unfortunately it only got a very limited release as a score, so it's hard to get hold of the soundtrack. I'm sure you can get it on YouTube, but to get hold of vinyl or CD of it is quite difficult. But I really enjoyed the score. So it was a good film, it was a bad film, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Well, me and Boggy watched it together a couple of weekends ago because he was staying at my house along with his son.
Was that breakfast in bed?
No, we did have separate rooms. So we watched it together. So what were your feelings about it, Si?
Gordon summed it up because Alex kept absolutely killing himself laughing at the Christmas tree backgrounds of the space. He said, Dad, it's just Christmas. What's the Christmas tree doing in the background? And he kept going on about that, and he loved it, and the robot as well. The robot with the Texan accent. I turned to Matt at one point and said, is some point in this film that robot is going to go, yeehaw? And lo and behold, when they jump out the spaceship window, he went, yeehaw. Oh, it was just absolutely... I loved it. I thought it was hilarious, and I didn't... you can't hate it. You could just see what it was made for as, and I just thought it was fantastic. I just thought it was hilarious. I think it was great. And the fact that the robot, as Alex, my son, pointed out, he got his head chopped, smashed to bits. Yep. He was left for dead on the planet. The planet explodes, and then in the next scene, he appears back on the spaceship again, with no explanation of how he's back.
He keeps getting shot, doesn't he? And he blundered on the back of the head, and he gets back. So
just wondered how he just reappeared out of nowhere. But I knew he would turn up again. That's what
I like the co-pilot character whose name escapes me right now. He was played by Joe Gortner, and he was called Acton. So I liked him because he was obviously the kind of mystical Jedi-like character. He had the laser sword, and he got some environmental sort of lightning effects going on between his hands at various times. But he just spent the whole film with this bemused look and smirk on his face, like I know this is terrible, but I'm going to enjoy myself anyway. So him.
The worst thing with him was he just looked like Tommy Steele. I was expecting him to start singing "Look Like Bull" any minute.
I thought he looked like Bob Willis. That's what I.
We ought to mention the scene where Caroline Munro and was it the robot got trapped out in sub-freezing temperatures, and he was just like, hold my hand and you'll be fine, and then they bring her back in and thaw her out, and all her makeup and hair is absolutely perfect. That was great as well.
There's one scene where she's wearing this see-through plastic trousers, and she's walking, and obviously they're trying to avoid the noise of this plastic rubbing together as she's walking, so she walks like she's pooed her pants. It's really, really bad.
Okay, so
the funniest scene I remember involving her is when they're sentenced at the beginning to labour, or life labour on this planet, hard labour, and they turn to this sort of mine place, and everyone else is in tattered clothes and everything, and she's wearing this PVC outfit, looks completely out of place. 5 minutes later, they escape. She kills everyone. Virtually all the other prisoners get killed, and then she wanders up back to the robot and the guy out of Raise the Lost Art, I think. And they said they were going to pardon her anyway because she was going to go off on this great mission. So she's murdered all these people, and all these prisoners have died for nothing. They were going to let her go anyway.
Yeah.
What she made me laugh was that she said, I've been doing this ceaseless work for an hour now, and I've had enough, so let's escape. It's literally that. Hard labour for an hour.
Some surprisingly positive comments. Let's just give it a mark out of 10 from each of you. Gordon?
I'm going to give it a 4.
Graham?
8.
Pete?
2.
Si?
7.
And I'm going to give it a 4, which is 2 for the film, 1 for the amusement factor, and 1 for Caroline Munro's outfits. Okay, so we'll put the scores for that up on the Movie Muse leaderboard. I don't imagine it'll be very near the top of that leaderboard once we've reviewed some more films. Which brings us to the next film choice, which comes from Peter. What are we going to go for next in Film Club?
The Secret of Kells.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about The Secret of Kells?
It's an animated film. It's got an interesting style. It's quite an attractive film. Whether you actually like the story or not, I'm not sure. But certainly visually, it's quite different. It looks nice. It's an attractive film to watch, and I think that's one of the main appeals. It's based on a book called The Book of Kells, which they're not sure. When you read about it, there's some debate as to where the book was actually written, but it was at least kept in Kells in Ireland. And basically they're trying to write this book. They're being invaded by Vikings, and it follows a young child who goes out into the woods and meets a sort of wood fairy girl, and she shows him that there's more to life than just staying behind walls being scared of Vikings. But it's mainly about the book. It is all about this book that they're writing, and it's based. It's historically, I don't know whether it's historically factual. It obviously isn't necessarily, but it is based on an actual book that actually exists. You can buy the book of Kells. You can buy for your iPad apparently.
Okay, so Secret of Kells not readily available on any of your streaming media platforms as far as I'm aware. You can pick the DVD up from Amazon for less than a tenner if you want to check it out, and I'm sure there's some other places on the internet you can find it, which we won't go into the details of. So we're all going to watch that, and we'll give our feedback about it next time around. If you want to watch it as a listener and make your comments about it on Facebook or Twitter, then we will put them up on the next episode. Just a couple of things left to do then. The classic scene. We're going to pick a classic scene from a classic movie, arguably, depending on who chooses it, of course. This time, Mr. Sinclair is going to choose it for us. Gordon?
I've already mentioned that I'm a big fan of Rocky, and that I believe Rocky 6 is right up there with the best in the Rocky films. What I would say about this particular scene is it's just an inspirational message, and there's hundreds of internet memes showing the words that Sylvester Stallone gives, and it's just whenever anybody is whining on at you like his son does in the film, life's too hard and all of that crap, you just need to play him Sylvester Stallone telling you about it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It's a classic scene, and it's also a film that proves that you can revisit an old franchise and do it well. So I hope that J.J. Abrams was watching.
Living with you, it hasn't been easy. People see me, but they think of you. Now with all this going on, this is gonna be worse than ever.
It don't have to be.
No, sure it does.
Why? You got a lot going on, kid.
Oh, what, my last name? That's the reason I got a decent job. That's the reason why people deal with me in the first place. Now I start to get a little ahead. I start to get a little something for myself. And this happens. Now I'm asking you as a favor not to go through with this, okay? This is only gonna end up bad for you, and it's gonna end up bad for me.
You think I'm hurting you?
Yeah, in a way you are.
It's the last thing I ever wanted to do.
I know that's not what you want to do, but that's just the way that it is. Don't you care what people think? Doesn't it bother you that people are making you out to be a joke and that I'm gonna be included in that? Do you think that's right? Do you?
You ain't gonna believe this. But you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up and say to your mother, this kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you every day. It was like a privilege. Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life.
Okay, so every episode we're going to do a top 3 of something chosen by the host. Since Christmas is coming up, I thought we'd do top 3 Christmas movies from each of you in reverse order, third to first. So, Graham, your top 3 Christmas movies in reverse order.
Gremlins.
Yeah.
Elf.
Good one.
Elf, yeah.
And Die Hard 2.
Die Hard 2, controversial again, Graham.
I know, it's because Die Hard 2 has snow.
Ah, okay, that's fair enough. It's wrong, but it's fair enough. Okay, Pete, your top 3 Christmas movies in reverse order?
Planes, Trains and Automobiles.
Damn, that was mine.
You can still have it, Simon.
Home Alone and Trading Places.
Oh, nice.
Good ones, yeah.
That's two of mine then.
Simon, I assume you've got 3 now, so let's hear them.
Yeah, it's the Nightmare Before Christmas, the Tim Burton animated film. Muppet Christmas Carol, I like, and the one that I loved that Alex loved when he was a toddler, and it always was Miracle on 34th Street. Cause it's cheesy, but Alex absolutely loved that film, and I think so. I like it for that reason.
Interesting that those 3 weren't any of the ones that Pete said.
I was thinking.
Oh, no point saying them twice, is there?
I suppose not. Gordon?
Yeah, mine are probably a little bit more standard than those. I would say in third, Elf. Not a fan of Will Ferrell, but apart from Blades of Steel, this is his only other good film. Then I would say Miracle on 34th Street, preferably the 1947 version, but unusually, it's a really good remake as well, so I don't mind the 94 version. And top is It's a Wonderful Life. It's in my top 5 films of all time, never mind Christmas films, and it's the only film that consistently makes me cry.
That's funny, the only film that makes me consistently cry is Attack of the Clones. Good choices from all of you, eclectic. My top 3, I was going to choose Trading Places, but since Pete chose it, I was umming and ahhing between this and the one I'm going to choose. So my third place is Love Actually, which not everyone likes, but
Really?
it is a great Christmas film.
Friggin' awful.
Okay.
I'm in shock.
Okay, well, that's fine. So in third is Love Actually, second is Elf, because it's just a great Christmas film, and first place, the film that I watch every Christmas Eve with my wife, Die Hard. So those are our Christmas choices, love them or hate them. So let's move on to OST, original soundtrack, chosen this time by Simon. We're going to hear why he chooses a particular soundtrack and a specific song from that soundtrack, which we will play at the end of the show. Simon, what have you got for us?
I've gone for probably a pretty iconic, I suppose, 80s film. It was action, people like Tom Cruise was in it, Val Kilmer, so I've gone for Top Gun soundtrack because it has actually got quite a few pretty decent tracks in it for a soundtrack. Obviously you had Berlin, Take My Breath Away was the main song on it that everyone remembers. It had also, when you had the famous scene where you had You've Lost That Loving Feeling, the Righteous Brothers, that's always, everyone remembers that. Yeah. Jerry Lee Lewis, Great Balls of Fire was on it. You had the Top Gun anthem that they used in the computer game for FA-18 Interceptor. The famous anthem when they're flying over the aircraft carrier. There's there's a few good little tracks. Hot Summer Nights, Wham! Sound Machine was on it. Little bits like that. One that I've chosen, obviously, because I just like the power of it. I like that. Just like it. It was the B-side to take to Berlin. I actually bought the Berlin single just to get this B-side. It was Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone. I just love that when they're doing all the flight and they're doing the thing when they're going for the Russians, and then they have the Danger Zone comes on when they're all flying up there, and I don't know, it just brings home the film to me. I think it's such an iconic film for its time, a film of its time. Great flying scenes, a bit of action, Tom Cruise looking like Tom Cruise does with his sunglasses and just looking cool. Kelly McGillis was excellent. I just like the whole sort of film of it, sort of an 80s thing for me. But Danger Zone's the one I always remember it for. But everyone else remember it for Berlin and maybe the Righteous Brothers. But for me, it was Kenny Loggins.
No, they don't. Everyone remembers it for Highway to the Danger Zone.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good soundtrack, good 80s action film soundtrack. There's not really many duffers on it, although I think Miami Sound Machine falls into that category.
It wasn't that bad, but yeah.
One thing that surprised me about Danger Zone, which is absolutely the standout track on that soundtrack, which is a brilliant 80s soundtrack, is that when it was released as a single on its own in the UK, it only got to number 45, which surprises me because I thought it would be this kind of song that even without a film attached to it, it would be a hit.
Yeah,
Loggins, just nobody likes Loggins, obviously. Loggins is a great soundtrack composer, or not composer, but soundtrack contributor. You know, he did Footloose, of course, and he also didn't he do the song from Caddyshack as well, I think? That's the second time I've mentioned Caddyshack today. Okay, great choice. We'll obviously play Danger Zone at the end of the show, which is now over. I'm going to hand over to Pete to preview our next show in just a moment, but I think we should wish all our listeners / viewers a Merry Christmas. So
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
A Merry New Year!
So Pete, what have we got next time around?
Next time on Movie Muse, we will have a whole show dominated by the amazing abs of Sylvester Stallone. Rocky coming at you. Take it!
And that's a wrap.